Welcome back to the Deep Dives. Today, we're going to be tackling something that might sound a little dry at first, Turkish property law. But you've sent us some really interesting legal documents.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, kat mülkiyeti, kat irtifakı
Right.
3.pdf, and kat mülkiyeti kanunu.pdf. And, I have a feeling this is going to be anything but boring.
You're absolutely right to be intrigued. I mean, these documents really lay the groundwork for, understanding how property ownership works in Turkey. And there are definitely some unique twists and turns.
So, imagine our listeners thinking about buying an apartment in Turkey. What is the first thing they really need to wrap their heads around?
Well, one of the most, I think, fundamental concepts is this term, kat mülkiyeti, which is basically the Turkish version of what we know as condominium ownership.
Okay, so that means you own your specific apartment, right?
Yes, but it's more than just owning the space within your four walls. With kat mülkiyeti, you also have a share in the ownership of the building's common areas.
Oh.
Like, the lobby, the hallways, elevators, even the land the building sits on. It's like a hybrid system of individual and shared ownership.
Interesting. So it's not as simple as just getting your own keys and calling it a day. You're entering into a kind of mini community with other owners.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting because with shared ownership comes shared responsibility.
Ah, so there must be rules and regulations in place to make sure that everything runs smoothly.
That's where the concept of kat irtifakı comes in.
Okay.
This translates to floor easement, and it's essentially a pre-ownership right granted before the building is even finished.
Okay, I'm already sensing this is where it gets a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, it's a
Break it down for us.
yeah, it's a little bit tricky. So imagine a developer is building a new apartment complex. Before construction is complete, they can grant kat irtifakı to buyers. This gives them a legal claim to a specific unit once the building is finished and receives its occupancy permit.
So it's kind of like a promise of ownership, a way to secure your spot in the future building.
Precisely. And what's fascinating is that kat irtifakı automatically converts into full kat mülkiyeti ownership once that occupancy permit is issued.
Yeah.
It's like a legal metamorphosis.
That's pretty neat. It's like your ownership evolves along with the construction of the building.
It is. But here's where it gets even more intriguing. What happens if the developer goes bankrupt or, encounters problems during construction?
Right.
How does kat irtifakı protect your investment?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm guessing this is something our listeners should definitely be aware of before jumping into any kind of purchase.
Absolutely, yeah. It's crucial to understand the level of protection kat irtifakı offers and what potential risks are involved. It's always a good idea to seek legal advice, too, to make sure you're fully informed.
All right. Good advice. So we've got these two, intertwined concepts, kat mülkiyeti, the full ownership, and kat irtifakı, the pre-ownership. Where do we go from here?
Well, let's delve into the specifics of what exactly you own within a kat mülkiyeti framework.
Okay.
The documents use these terms, bağımsız bölüm and eklenti.
Those sound pretty technical.
Yeah.
Let's break those down, starting with bağımsız bölüm.
So bağımsız bölüm simply means independent section. Essentially, it's your apartment itself, the space that's exclusively yours, defined by its walls, floor, and ceiling.
Okay. That's straightforward enough. And what about eklenti? Does that mean like an extra room?
Eklenti translates to annex, and it's a space designated for your exclusive use, but it's directly connected to your independent section. So think balconies, private gardens, or parking spaces.
That makes sense. So my balcony is part of my apartment, but it's specifically called out as like my own little slice of the outdoor.
Exactly. But here's where it gets interesting. An annex doesn't have to be an enclosed space.
Oh.
Imagine having a designated section of the shared garden allocated as your private parking space.
Wait, really? So I could technically have a parking spot in the middle of a garden?
Yes. That's the unique thing about the eklenti concept. It doesn't have to be walls and a roof. It's about designating a specific area for your exclusive use, whether it's a covered balcony or an open patch of land.
That's fascinating.
Oh.
I'm picturing all sorts of creative possibilities now.
Right. It really highlights the flexibility within the Turkish property system.
Okay, so we've covered the parts of the property that are all yours. Now, what about the shared spaces? What do they call those in Turkish?
The term for shared spaces is ortak, and this is where the community aspect of kat mülkiyeti really comes into play.
So what kind of spaces fall under this category?
Think of the essential structural elements of the building. The foundations, the main walls, the roof. These are all ortak because they're crucial for the building's integrity and benefit everyone.
Right.
Um,
Okay, that makes sense. It's like the backbone of the entire structure. And then you have the more obvious shared spaces, like the lobby, elevators, stairwells.
exactly. Those are all classic examples of ortak. But it can go beyond that too, depending on the specific building and its management plan.
The management plan keeps coming up. What exactly is it, and why is it so important?
The management plan, or yönetim planı, is essentially the rule book for the entire building.
Okay.
It outlines how shared spaces can be used, sets out the responsibilities of owners, and dictates things like fee structures. It's a legally binding document for all apartment owners.
So it's like the constitution for the building,
Yeah.
laying down the law of the land.
That's a great analogy. And within this constitution, there's this concept called irtifakı that plays a crucial role in decision making.
Arsa paya, another new term. What does that mean?
It translates to land share, and it refers to the proportional share of the land each unit owner has based on the size of their apartment. So if you own a large apartment, you have a larger arsa.
Okay, I see where this is going. So does that mean someone with a bigger apartment gets more say in how the building is run?
That's a great question, and it's one we'll explore further in the next part of our deep dive, because this RSA system can have some interesting implications for decision-making and even lead to disputes between owners. But for now, let's take a quick pause.
All right, that's a great cliffhanger. We're definitely coming back after to uncover more about this Arsa pay and how decisions are made in these.